You thought your silence was harmless, maybe even necessary. You weren't trying to cause pain, you were just trying to breathe, to step back, to process things in your own time. You convinced yourself it was the mature move. No yelling, no blaming, just quiet, space. But to her, it didn't feel like space. It felt like disappearance, like rejection without closure. While you sat there thinking you were doing the respectful thing by staying silent instead of starting a fight, what you actually did was open the door to her worst fears and shut her out without warning. You see, she doesn't hear silence the way you do. You hear stillness, maybe even relief. She hears alarm bells. You feel calm, she feels chaos. Because your silence didn't just remove your voice, it removed your presence, your energy, your safety, and that absence, that void, doesn't just sit quietly in her chest. It screams. It pulses. It gnaws at her confidence, her peace, her sense of connection. Suddenly she's stuck trying to read between the lines of something that no longer exists. Your words have stopped. So now her mind takes over, and that's a dangerous place to leave her. She starts to rewind everything. Every conversation, every text, every joke, every moment you pulled her close. She's scanning it all like footage, looking for the frame where you began to drift. Was it something she said? Was she too much? Not enough? Her brain becomes a constant editor, trimming down memories, highlighting mistakes, turning love into a checklist of reasons why you need have decided she wasn't worth the effort anymore. And the worst part? She doesn't know if she's overthinking or if her gut is right. And the truth is, she doesn't want to overreact. She doesn't want to be the girl who panics just because you needed a day or two. So she tries to stay calm, tries to keep herself busy, tells herself you'll reach out soon. But hours stretch into days, and the longer the silence lingers, the louder her doubt becomes. She doesn't even know if she should text you, or if reaching out would make her look desperate. So instead, she waits in. That waiting begins to eat her alive, because what you saw as a neutral move, just pulling back, she experiences as emotional abandonment. You think you're just taking a step back, but to her, it feels like being left behind. It feels like punishment with no explanation. And that kind of wound doesn't just hurt her feelings, it confuses her identity. Because women don't just experience love through words. They experience it through connection, through energy, through consistency. And when all of that goes dark, her mind fills in the blanks. And it never fills them with grace. It fills them with fear. You might think, you're being misunderstood. You might even feel like, why does everything have to be so dramatic? But this isn't about drama. It's about emotional clarity. It's about the fact that silence doesn't just represent a lack of communication. It becomes communication. In itself, it tells her something, even if you never intended it to. It tells her you don't care enough to explain. That she's not worth the effort of honesty. That she should have known better than to trust someone who vanishes when things get real. And while you sit in silence thinking you're holding on to your power, you're actually letting go of something much more valuable: her trust, her sense of emotional safety, her ability to believe that you are a man who shows up even when things get hard. Because silence isn't strength if it comes at the cost of connection. Silence, when left unexplained, doesn't just pause the relationship, it begins to unravel it. So if you've ever wondered what your silence does to her, understand, this: it doesn't give her room to breathe, it gives her space to doubt. It doesn't create calm, it creates confusion. And it doesn't feel like a break, it feels like a goodbye she wasn't prepared for. When you go silent, she doesn't start yelling, she doesn't accuse. She folds, quietly, slowly, almost invisibly. At first she might try to brush it off, tell herself, you're just busy, you need time, that not every pause is a problem. But when the silence stretches too long, when your voice fades into absence, she doesn't just wonder what happened, she starts wondering what she did. And instead of coming to you for answers, she turns inward. That's when everything begins to shift. She stops being the woman she was when you first met, the one who spoke freely, laughed without filters, and sent you long messages about everything and nothing. That version of her starts to shrink. She begins second-guessing every word she types. Messages take longer to send, not because she's busy, but because she's afraid. Will this come off as needy? Am I being too much? Should I just not say anything? She used to text you the moment she felt something. Now she rewrites her messages 3 times and still doesn't hit send. And the real sting: she starts apologizing for things she doesn't understand. Not in direct ways, but in how she behaves. She pulls back, not because she wants to, but because she thinks she's the reason you're distant. She adjusts her tone, edits her personality, becomes softer in the hope that she won't push you further away. Her questions disappear. Her energy dulls. The warmth in her voice, the sparkle in her responses, they all fade, replaced by carefulness. You might not notice it right away, but you'll feel the difference. She's not as open, not as expressive, not as her. That's because your silence created a vacuum, and she's trying to fill it with guesses, most of which blame her. It's not that she wants to become smaller, it's that she thinks she has to. She doesn't know what triggered the distance, so she starts filtering her own existence through insecurity. Maybe if I'm quieter, maybe if I don't ask as much, maybe if I just wait, he'll come back. She's not being manipulative, she's trying to survive your withdrawal. Every word she thinks of sharing now goes through a filter of will. This make me lose him. And when you love someone, that's a terrifying filter to live under. It changes how you breathe, how you speak, how you show up. She stops being her full self, not out of deception but out of desperation. Desperation to not lose the connection, even if it means losing parts of herself in the process. You might think she's fine because she isn't blowing up your phone. You might think she's just giving you space. But what's really happening? Is she shrinking inside your silence, trying to morph into someone you'll still want? And the tragedy is, she doesn't even realize how much of herself she's sacrificing just to keep you near. All because you left her in the dark and didn't think it mattered. But to her, it mattered more than you'll ever know. When the silence lingers too long, something inside her shifts from wondering to searching. She doesn't just sit with the confusion anymore. She starts trying to solve it, not by confronting you, but by going inward, becoming a detective in her own story. Her heart becomes an investigation site, her mind a crime scene filled with questions she never wanted to ask. When did the tone of his voice change? What did he mean by that last message? Was that emoji missing for a reason? She goes back and replays every interaction, looking for clues, not because she wants to obsess, but because she's desperate for answers that you never gave. And the most painful part, she's not looking for evidence that proves you care. She's trying to understand why you stopped. That's where it starts to break her. She's reading messages you probably forgot you sent, clinging to the warmth in your old words, trying to understand how someone who once made her feel seen could suddenly feel so far away. She doesn't want to believe you changed, so she assumes something must have happened, something she missed, something she caused. But the truth is, you never said anything. You just got quiet, and in that silence, you handed her a puzzle without all the pieces. She tries to keep it together. She laughs with her friends, smiles in photos, replies to texts, but behind it all, she's running mental loops, rewriting moments, filling in blanks. Because silence doesn't leave her with facts, it leaves her with fears. And when there's nothing real to hold on to, fear always fills the gaps with the worst-case scenario. Maybe you're talking to someone else. Maybe you were never that into her. Maybe this was all temporary for you. Her mind starts feeding her stories not because she wants to believe them, but because silence forces her to pick a truth, and the most painful one usually feels like the most honest. And it's not drama. It's not insecurity. It's a survival response to emotional abandonment. Your silence made her question not just the future, but the past. And when that happens, when love starts to look like a lie, something inside her cracks. She's no longer trying to save the relationship. She's just trying to make sense of why it suddenly feels like it never existed at all. Because when you left her in the dark, you didn't just walk away, you left her to create a story. And sadly, the one she tells herself hurts more than any truth you could have spoken. There comes a point when she stops trying, not because she doesn't care anymore, but because caring has become exhausting. She's been carrying the weight of your silence for too long, trying to understand it, trying to work around it, trying not to take it personally. But day by day, message by message, left unread, effort met with nothing, she begins to mirror you. At first, it's subtle. Her replies get slower. Her tone turns neutral. Then the check-ins stop. The good mornings fade. The little just thinking of you messages vanish. Not out of anger, but out of fatigue. She's not playing a game. She's not trying to punish you. She's tired of pouring into a space that gives nothing back. When you went silent, you did it to protect your emotions, your space, your mind. But when she goes silent, it's to protect her dignity. Her silence isn't a strategy, it's survival. Because how long can someone keep reaching for a hand that never reaches back? How long can someone keep showing up where they no longer feel welcome? She starts to retreat, and in that retreat, something in her shifts. She's no longer waiting for you to notice the distance. She's no longer hoping you'll snap out of it and come running back. Instead, she begins to detach not with drama, but with grace. She answers when you reach out, but with fewer words. She listens when you speak, but stops holding on to every syllable. The emotional intimacy starts to fade, not because she wanted it to, but because she can't keep offering it to someone who treats it like a burden. You think she's changed? You think she's cold now? But really, she's protecting what's left of her spirit. She gave you chances, patience, softness, and in return, you gave her silence. So now, she gives it back not to make you feel what she felt, but because there's nothing left for her to say. When a woman stops fighting for a connection, it's rarely because she stopped caring. It's because she got tired of doing it alone. The hardest part is that she still feels everything. She still cares, but she's done expressing it where it isn't reciprocated. Her silence is not a test. It's a decision, a choice to stop begging for the bare minimum. She's not trying to win you back. She's finally realizing she shouldn't have to fight so hard to be seen, heard, or loved. That realization doesn't come with rage. It comes with quiet strength, the kind you only find after you've been let down too many times. Eventually, she stops waiting not with a loud goodbye or a final message filled with pain, but with quiet acceptance. The kind of acceptance that doesn't beg for closure anymore because it realizes none is coming. One morning, something just clicks inside her. It's not a dramatic epiphany. It's subtle. She wakes up and no longer feels the urge to check if you've messaged. She doesn't reread the last thing you said. She doesn't replay your voice in her mind. She simply exhales. Not because it's easy, but because she's tired of holding her breath for someone who made silence louder than love. You won't know the moment it happens. You won't feel it when she lets go. Because the most powerful exits rarely come with the door slamming shut. They come with someone quietly walking away from the door that was already left open for too long. She doesn't tell her friends right away. She doesn't post anything cryptic online. Instead, she reclaims her energy, piece by piece, starting with the things she stopped doing for herself. She begins listening to the music she used to love. Before you occupied her thoughts, she wears that lipstick again. She laughs without feeling like something's missing. She stops filtering her personality through your silence. She deletes the chat, not out of spite, but as a form of healing. She stops checking your profile, not because she doesn't care, but because she no longer wants to feed a hope that's only kept her stuck. She lets herself cry one last time, maybe not for you but for the version of herself who waited too long, who held on too tightly, who believed love could be found in someone who refused to speak. She honors that version of herself, then lets her go. And this part isn't easy. Letting go never is. She still has moments where her fingers hover over your name. There are nights when a song will remind her of something small or smile you gave her, the way you used to say her name, and it will sting. But she doesn't reach out. Not because she's over it entirely, but because she's over sacrificing her peace for someone else's indecision. She realizes she was waiting for something that may never come. Your honesty, your explanation, your effort. And that kind of waiting isn't patience, it's self-betrayal. So she chooses differently this time. She creates her own closure. She writes about you in her journal, not to hold on, but to let go. She tells herself the truth you never could, that your silence spoke volumes, and that's all the clarity she needed. Because closure isn't always about understanding why someone stopped showing up. Sometimes, it's simply accepting that they didn't, deciding you won't wait at the door any longer. And the final shift? She stops wondering if you'll come back. Not because the memories have vanished, but because the attachment has detached. The version of her who once would have dropped everything at the sound of your name no longer exists. She's not bitter. She's not angry. She just sees things clearly now. Your silence didn't just end. The connection, it rewired her understanding of what love should feel like. And now she knows. Love should never be that confusing. So while you may think she's still out there waiting, hoping, overanalyzing what went wrong, she's not. She's moving on, quietly, gracefully, with strength you'll never get to witness. And when you do finally think of her again, when you wonder if there's still a chance to reach back, you'll find nothing but silence in return. But this time, the silence is hers. And unlike yours, it isn't empty. It's full of peace, full of lessons, full of love she finally gave to herself.